Hi, Michelle, again.
Hi, Anthony.
Like I said, it's nice to finally get to meet you.
I feel the same way. It's been too long for us not to have done something like this.
Yes, exactly. And you're actually the first person, we can go on record with this, first person that's actually written and directed a Western that I've spoken to. I've never talked to anybody that's done Westerns before, previously.
Woohoo!
You're my
Wow,
first.
first is something, right? That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
And I've been a big fan. I think when my mother or when I rented The Last of the Mohicans from the library. I think that
Mm,
was my first taste into Western culture.
yeah,
And then, of course, John Wayne and Gary Cooper and High Noon and The Searchers and all that.
I think my favorites really still. Well, I think the Dollars trilogy is always kind of going to be my favorite because
Right.
of how it changed things cinematically and how you looked at things and how um it was less white hat, black hat kind of
Right.
stories. But I think my favorites as a kid, I don't know if you remember, you used to be able to see westerns were often a Sunday thing. It was either
Yep.
like a Sunday afternoon oldies or or it was what they put on a Sunday night against the football game or something
Yep.
like that. And and uh and for me it was the John Wayne movie I still like a lot, even though I find John Wayne a little problematic now, is is the Cowboys, because as a
Yes.
kid, watching kids get to do that was really cool. And I always loved Two Mules for Sister Sarah until as an
Yeah.
adult it became slightly problematic for me too. But I still love the film. When I started to realize how women were always either, the hooker in the saloon or the long-suffering farm wife or,
Yeah.
you know, um, that whole Madonna whore complex thing. And then as adult, I came to realize Sarah was both, and they saved money by only having one woman play both parts. It kind of ruined it a little bit for me, but the chemistry between Shirley MacLaine and Clint Eastwood, and you know, the fact that it was an American movie trying so hard to be an Italian Western, it
Yes.
still makes it a favorite for me.
Pale Rider's probably my favorite of his. I just like
Yeah.
how he tries to unite that town.
Yes. Yeah. And there's some really beautiful cinematic shots in that too,
Oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, for me, it was really funny. I had a conversation with somebody who I consider a mentor the other day, and I was saying that, he was saying, "Oh, you clearly love westerns," and I had to think about it for a bit. I think I've always really liked westerns, and there are periods in my life I've loved westerns, but I think I just right now kind of love writing westerns.
Mm,
I still love the genre, and I love it and like it,
right.
but there's something about it that I gravitate to write. And part of it is I think that westerns are our modern mythology. It's there's stories about ego and greed and ambition and hubris and how all of those always lead to downfall,
Yeah.
which is kind of what myths are generally about.
Right.
And so I think we're kind of missed the boat on what kind of stories have been told with the genre and what stories can still be told with the genre in a way where, because it's an environment where the person has to be completely self-actualized, and that's when human failings come into play,
Yeah.
right? There's no safety net.
Yeah, and Clint Eastwood tackled that well in Unforgiven because it just shows how he just becomes so desensitized to the whole killing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's yeah, there's just so many stories that get told subtly in westerns that I think people, they're quick to write off the genre, and yet it's still hugely popular internationally.
Yes.
And I think we're kind of missing the boat on that because I think it's a really great vehicle to tell stories about how we are today.
Well, and I know there's a lot of controversy. Well, maybe not controversy, but there's a lot of skepticism about Kevin Costner in Horizon Part Two, which is like what? It's 3 years now since that was supposed to come out. Like people who are fans of his, they still want to see the film, but the studio has no interest in releasing it for some reason.
Well, I think, and I'm not gonna we can have a conversation about things privately. I'm not gonna critique another
Okay,
filmmaker, but I
fair
am
enough.
gonna say that, you know, always comes down with the studio to cost to profit ratio. And
Right.
the cost of those versus the amount of money they can make did not prove to be in their favor on the first one. And that always makes them
I
dumb
saw it twice in the theater and I own it digitally.
uh,
I
I,
quite enjoyed it.
I don't think there was enough people that felt that way.
Yeah,
Or it was just too expensive for the amount of people that felt that way. Like it's that comparison, like it's always about profit,
yeah,
but sometimes budgets suck the success out of a film.
for sure.
So, yeah,
Unless
and I
you're
do
James
think,
Cameron and you can afford to have a loss once in a while, you know.
yeah, and I think his audience hasn't had as big a break in between like the avatars, so and there's always been talk about them. I also think that the appetite for westerns has changed,
Right.
in the sense that I don't think what I like to call the monolithic western. It's that traditional bunch of white guys on the range,
Yeah,
you know, are what sells anymore.
yeah,
I think people are looking for the rest of the color palette of society. And I think that there there's also a difference between a Western as entertainment and a Western as an historical piece. And I think those lines have been blurred with a lot of projects.
oh, for
And I
sure.
think that's where they fail. You got to know what you are. And I think that's why Westerns do so well on television.
Yeah, because Deadwood was a huge success.
Yeah, Hell on Wheels was great and it was really
Yeah,
successful and
yeah.
you know loved the English and
Look
oh
at
my
the
God,
history of guns. Look at the history of Gunsmoke.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Television knows it's entertainment, and when you're making
Yeah.
a Western for television, your entertainment. I I think there are ways to still bring historical fact into an entertaining Western, but I think you got to know what you are or what the audience is looking at. I mean, one of my favorite westerns isn't really a pure western. Last year I finally watched Warriors, the one set in San Francisco with in Chinatown. It's really a kung fu western
I didn't
because
see it.
it's set around the time of the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's
Oh,
fantastic, but it's a kung fu western, you know.
oh, okay.
So it's you know I I think you have to know what you are, and I think you have to bravely move beyond what has been traditional to be successful with westerns. That's my
Right.
feeling. I could be wrong, but just looking at things like Deadwood and Hell on Wheels, and the English, which was great. I think you really have to look beyond traditional storytelling to be successful with it.
Yeah, Old Henry did well on Netflix, I think.
Yeah,
That
loved
was
Old Henry.
that was brilliant.
It was great. It was really great. And again, it sort of reimagined someone's story, but it was beautifully done. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and the lead was great too,
He's always great.
isn't he though?
Yeah.
Like he's just solid,
Yeah.
hands down. So I got a question. So for your first movie, Last Stand in Nowhere,
Yeah.
you wrote, direct, produced.
With
Um,
friends. I produced with
with
friends.
yeah, I know you co-produced with
Yeah.
friend Victoria Angel was one of them,
Yeah.
a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
Um, so there you have the Earps and the Claytons.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about you switched genders though, and for people who don't know the film, I just watched it again this morning to get a refresh, and And my question for you is, there is a lot of gunplay. How did you handle? Because I noticed there's maybe about 8 or 10 gun wranglers on that were on set
Yeah.
because there's a lot of gun use. How do you handle that much gunplay? Like,
So, we were on a really fixed budget. We
right,
crowdfunded about 80% of the budget.
right.
Um, and so, we spent over a year working on sponsorships and community engagement and involvement. And we were incredibly lucky and fortunate to have the Thunderbird Fast Draw Club come on board. Now, for people who
Oh,
don't know, the Thunderbird Fast Draw Club is literally a competitive Old West fast draw group.
oh, okay.
And because there are competitions around North America, and the goal is to draw quickly, and it's a timed event. You have to hit a target about 8 feet away within a timer box. It's incredibly skilled, and some of the fastest draws in the world are in Langley, BC.
Really?
And because they also supplied the pistols, they had to each transport their own pistol, which means each of them got an actor to work with and be their wrangler. And it was the way we could do it,
Oh, okay.
and have them involved. And they were also our town folk. And it turned out to be great because we ran a training day with them, with the cast on a Sunday, how to handle it, what safety's like, what their competitions are like, so they get the feeling of a fast draw. And then we visual effects there were no blanks on set. We did visual effects with all of it, thanks to Chris Orchard at Orchard Studios, who also came in as a sponsor and executive producer.
Oh,
So, because the cast had been trained on how to respond with the pistol, that was easier for them to fake that there actually was no actual firing.
right.
I do think that, you know, doing the gunfire with visual effects is the safest way to go. Um,
For sure.
there was not and the Wranglers all presented the pistols and ensured that everybody saw the cast knew there were no bullets left over in a chamber, anything like that. So, um, it was a great experience doing it with them, and they are a wonderful group of people, and our cast was safe in their hands.
Yeah, because I'm thinking mostly of the scene near the start when the one girl comes back to her sisters and
Mhm.
there she holds the gun to the one girl in her face, and then the
Yeah.
other woman has the gun to the back of her head. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be one of my questions is safety on set, because we know there's been a most recent one tragedy with improper gun use
Yeah.
and of course Brandon Lee on the Crow,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
They were all using blanks.
Yeah,
Did not use blanks. We had nothing in the chambers.
yeah,
So that's, you know, and being my first time with pistols, it was a learning process for me on how it works and, what to do. And, Sean Murphy came back and did, our armor and gun wrangling work on Unfraid, my latest short film.
yes.
He is the safety coordinator for the World Fast Draw Championships.
Wow.
He's extremely conscientious about pistol and rifle safety. I always know with Sean, my cast are in really good, safe hands.
Well, and that's number one priority, right?
Yeah,
Is safety on set.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Because everybody wants to go home. You're just shooting a movie. It's not like you're
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
being police officers, right? Like,
Yeah. No. It's tough. I mean, having a pistol on set is, you've got considerations, but
yeah,
also, it's really tough to find ways to get things done on a budget. Like, you know, and Westerns are really tough for that. And that's probably why there are a fair amount of short form projects made, but I don't see them getting made here. Um, and I don't know. I know what the answer is. All I know is that, we just shy away from it. in Vancouver.
Right. No, I remember when I was editing at the Vancouver Film School, and there was a scene where they shot where this young girl takes a gun out of her bag.
Mhm.
She just looks at it, and then she proceeds to throw it in the water. Of course, she doesn't throw the physical gun in there; they just make the sound. But during that scene, she had taken the gun out, and some police officers were in the vicinity, and
Mhm.
they shut the whole set down because they thought it was a real gun. They're like, "No, it's a prop gun," but they didn't get a license to have the gun on set, so the set was shut down.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, between the permits are super important.
Yeah, the
There's been a
permit.
couple of stories like that out of Vancouver Film School. There was one a few years ago, and I think it was in a car park, a garage.
Right.
You know, um,
Weren't they shooting a music video or something?
I think they had a bunch of. I don't know if it was might not even have been Vancouver Film School. I'm not going to say that for sure. I
Okay.
just remember there was. They didn't have a permit or
Yes.
permission to be in the garage, and they were doing. I think it was like a SWAT team kind of thing.
Yeah,
And somebody called the police
I
thinking,
heard about that too. Yeah,
yeah,
because they thought it was legit.
yeah. And again, that may not have been Vancouver Film School. It just your comment
Yeah,
ignited my memory of that.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a really interesting conundrum, and it's interesting. I just came back from Almeria again in 20 October,
Yeah.
and for those who don't know, that's the home of the two of the sets that Sergio Leone built, and they have a Western Film Festival there. And I met filmmakers from the U.S., Spain, Mexico, Colombia, Chile, um, the UK, Bahrain, all of them either making westerns or neo westerns. And that was one of the conversations we never had, actually.
Was
Surprisingly.
permits on for guns?
Yeah. How did you handle the pistols? So, yeah,
Well,
I
yeah,
had to.
that's something that I've always wanted to know. Like, how do you? I met I met the one of the stunt coordinators for the Planet of the Apes films. He came in to buy a bunch of, believe it or not, aluminum garbage cans. He was using to for the apes spears.
Ah,
They would soak them in water to give them that worn out look, to
yeah,
make them look weathered. They would stain it in water and some sort of stain. So he told me how they set up all the shots, like when they were, like if the humans were walking and the apes were up in the trees. And he
yeah,
says as soon as the shot is done, the wranglers come and they get the guns from everybody.
yeah.
And he
It's
says we had they of course had a lot more wranglers because they have a lot more people on set.
yeah. The the routine and the expertise in Vancouver in the um, service production industry are world class in Vancouver.
Yeah,
I would trust them 100%.
that's what a lot of the rest of the world doesn't understand is, we've got people who know how to get the job done, and that's why so many productions come over here.
Yeah,
And
the crews are excellent.
their stars are pretty well left alone when they're here too, for the most part.
For the most part, I think our crews are top notch. I think we have to give our cast a huge shout out too.
Yeah.
I think Canada does our actors a bit of a disservice. We've sort of shunned the idea of a star system,
Hmm.
and in many ways, that's been bad for filmmakers, and it's bad for actors. They deserve the credit for what they do, and two, it's harder to finance if you haven't allowed them to have the opportunity to have a name within the industry. and
Yep.
and our talent is, again, world class here.
Yep. Well, I mean, David Cronenberg's never stepped on the other side of the border.
No, he's gone to Europe instead. A lot of people prefer to go to Europe. I kind of understand why. it's it's a really different experience. They have a different sort of um attitude about it, but it's again top notch. And oh man, if filming in Spain, like a lot of westerns filmed in Spain because it's the only desert in Europe.
Right.
And yeah, I can understand why they would want to.
For Unfraid, coffee is a great um denominator in this film, especially with the trade of the coffee cup.
Yeah, yeah,
You
we've
you
showed a lot of
form you
pictures in that.
bond that friendship right there because two strangers are sharing that. She's giving her that cup of coffee, and that exchange. I like how you you could have held the camera back, but you focused on the hands of of a possible friendship being united over a cup of coffee. And that
Yeah,
really was a kind of a, watching it again this morning, really kind of was a powerful part of the film because it's as short as it is, it resonates that that bond that they develop at the end of the film.
yeah, it is the turning point of the film. We have not released any pictures yet of that moment, which I'm still trying to figure out when we're going to. There's something for the anybody that's listening to this, there's something beyond just the coffee in that scene that
Yes.
bonds them.
Yeah.
Um, and but it's the exchange of the coffee that gets them to the point where they realize something about each other. It's a Western, but it's also a character study, and it's
Yeah.
also a proof of concept for a larger piece I want to make. Um, and I've been working on the feature script for that. Um,
Good. I want
I
to see
do
more of that.
I do think that, it's the little things in life we take for granted that sometimes can reveal the most about us.
Yeah.
And and also there's also the analogy of modern times. We meet for coffee, we go for coffee, we grab a Java, we go to cafes all the time to find connection with
Yeah.
people. It's the safe space you have a first date. It's you know coffee is it's a meeting point for us now,
Yeah.
and it is for them too. And that also connects us to that moment, that something that they witness within each other by the passing of coffee, that is also reflective of a lot of things in modern society right now. So it was important, I think, that the audience was intimately in that moment with them, and taking the shot back would have taken the audience out of that.
Yeah.
Instead, we're looking over that cup with them, and I felt that was really important, that we give it that time in that moment for it to sink in.
No, I totally agree. It really just helps elevate the story and their friendship and what happens at the end, but I'm not going to give anything away. That's why I just wanted to focus on the coffee cup.
Yeah, the ending has been, I'm going to say, slightly controversial. It is a point of conversation a lot of times with people who have seen the film.
Oh,
um, and it's
how so? They
interesting.
too sudden or just too much of a cliffhanger?
A bit of a cliffhanger, and also like, but I want to see who's chasing them, and I'm like, every woman knows what's chasing them. and
She comes
and
armed with a knife. It's clear that
it's
she,
pretty clear. Yeah. So I really wanted to finish on them because the story is really about these two, women. One is physically damaged, she's been in an altercation, and the other one is emotionally damaged, right? She
right.
prefers to be on her own, not in a town, not around people. And
Yeah.
it's how those two kind of come to a point where they realize that together they're stronger. And really that's what it's about. And So to finish on somebody or something else diminishes them, in my opinion. And also, I don't want to entertain the idea that they could ever fail, because together, the idea is that they can't,
At
you
that
know?
moment in which you fade out, they're united as one.
Yeah.
They started out as strangers
Yeah.
and they became united as one. And that coffee had a lot to do with that.
A lot. But how many times do we talk about, if we could just break bread with somebody, you dislike them less, you get to know their point of view, you know? uh, Culturally, sharing a drink, sharing a meal has always been our way to find common ground.
Yeah.
You know, and so it felt like a natural space for them, for May and Betty, to find their common ground. And I'm pitching the feature script as, for lack of a better expression, because you always like comps, it's a diverse Thelma and Louise in the West. But I can tell you, my women are not jumping off a cliff together at the end. That's the one thing I will
Oh,
guarantee
darn.
you.
Not even in a car? Oh, well, they didn't have cars back
Not
then.
their horses, not anything. I don't kill my women off. So yeah, the cast is fantastic.
Yes.
Crystal Balint and Simone Bailey do a beautiful job. I really want to give a shout out to some of our crew. I mean, I thought Paula Negrito did a beautiful job with the costumes. She made May's dress out of and vest, by repurposing actually a prom dress and a waiter's
Oh,
vest,
oh,
right? She did an incredible job. Um,
yes.
Major is always like a go-to guy for indie film on production design. Dan DuMichel did a great job on cinematography. And again, this was another group of friends and colleagues who produced, and Adrian Neblett, Elena Tom, and Anthony Epp. I couldn't have done it without them. Making a Western on a limited budget, because again, this was crowdfunded,
Yeah.
um, is tough, so you really, you really can't do it on your own. Like it, and I could go on, I mean, there are 45 names easily I could ream off, who helped make this happen. I've already mentioned Sean. Uh, it is, the joy of working in Vancouver is, the camaraderie around projects,
Right.
you know, um, and the amazing people that come aboard to just make, in many ways, your dream project come alive is exceptional. And again, many of them are working professionals in the industry who come out on a Saturday night in the middle of the woods. Um, you know,
Did for this one. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think crew call was, I think 2:30, 3:30, something in there, and I closed the gate to the property at 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
How many days of shoot did you have for that?
one night we shot it in one night. That's all the money there was for. Like there was
Oh,
just,
wow.
yeah, one night. Whereas Last Stand, we moved in for one day and shot for 3 days, but it was a much longer script. It was 11 pages with 8 characters, and realistically, 3 locations: saloon, shack, and the outside of town. And this was, 2 people, 1 location. So,
Yeah.
that plays in it. Just tougher conditions. Although, we had a funny story on the Last Stand set. We moved in on the Thursday at Border Town.
Right.
And to get into Border Town, you walk down this slope past the church down to the town that was built for the show Border Town decades ago. And I get down there, and we're moving into the saloon on the Thursday and setting it up. And um, uh, Sabrina, the show, was taking one of the other buildings and setting inside there so they could come in on Monday. And I get down to the bottom of the hill, and everybody says, turn around. And I'm like, why? And they're like, just turn around. And this is the liaison and one of our producers and our production manager. And I turn around and they had painted the church, Satan's hell home, with pentacles all over it.
Oh,
And they're
no.
like, that's not in your shot, is it? And I'm looking down the center of town and I'm looking at the church and it's right in my shot. And all I keep thinking is, I'm going to make a zombie Western now. No, can we make this a horror Western? Like, and they started to laugh. And the liaison said, it's okay. My husband works in greens. We can cover that. And, but I had this moment of panic, right? Because we spent a year trying to get this off the ground.
Oh,
And I
wow.
looked behind me and the church was now Satan's hellhole.
Jeez. We've got a few minutes left here. Is there anything else you'd like to share? I mean, you're working on your feature.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get that going.
Um, both both short projects are proofs of concept. Last Stand I've had conversations about and still having conversations about making it into something bigger. I think, like anything else, you've got to take risks nowadays. The amount of creative material on the festival circuit has exploded. And we're not sure why. Some of it might be AI, some of it is during COVID, some projects were held back, and then there was a flurry of production. I don't know. There are festivals now opening AI divisions, so there's now less screening opportunities for the other films because they're not adding days, they're just adding other blocks.
Right.
At the end of it all, I think if you're going to be a needle in an ever expanding haystack, I think you've got to take risks, and I think the Western is ripe for that.
Yes.
I think genre in general, we're seeing that with horror right now. Taking risks is the only way to really sort of stand out right now.
Yeah.
Um, I ran into somebody at a film event in Vancouver, and they pointed at me and went, you know, the Western film woman. And I went, the niche may be this big, but it's all mine. And it's not really, but it says to me, there aren't enough of us playing in Westerns in Canada.
Right.
And I think there can be. When I went to Almeria in 2019 with Last Stand to Nowhere, I was the only female director there. In 2025, there were 2 features directed by women and 2 shorts. So I think it's a growing genre for us, and I think it's a growing genre that we should not ignore in Canada.
I
That's my
agree.
pick.
Nope.